The following clip is from the North to South Show, live every Monday and Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, where we talk SEC football everything. Now, we'd love to have you out for next show, but for now, hit that like button down below, hit that subscribe button, and enjoy this clip. But now let's talk about another transfer. Transfer portal has been something that has been going insane in college football the last couple of years. You go back 10 years. Yes, the transfer portal happened. There were some guys who transferred, but it is such a crucial part of college football. And really, what I just talked about, two of the most important topics in all of college football right now is the NIL bill, which we just talked about with the NFTs, and the transfer portal. They are two of the biggest topics in all of college football. You mix that in with maybe how many teams should make it into the playoffs and how should we scale in group of 5 teams. Should they have a chance to make the college football playoff and all that kind of stuff. So there's lots of big topics to talk about in college football currently, but I think the transfer portal is definitely one of the bigger ones. And where people are rubbed the wrong way about the transfer portal is there are going to be the bigger tier teams who have a player, let's say they bring in a highly recruited player, whatever you have it, and he's not performing to par, he's not getting the play time he wants, but he just wants to go out and play. Like, he wants a chance to go out and show what he's got. He just doesn't feel like he's getting the right amount of play time at wherever he's at. So that's the scenario where I'm completely fine with the transfer portal and everything. I believe that every kid should be given the opportunity to play equally. If they want to play somewhere and where they are isn't playing them, I'm more than fine with them being able to transfer and go get an opportunity elsewhere. So that's what happens in most cases in college football, but you're starting to see this trend where guys of teams that aren't as good, but this guy's like the star player of this team, or programs that are starting to like diminish in sense of like coaching change and everything like that, you're going to start to see these star players go to even bigger teams and just create even more of a super team than they already have. Obviously, I'm talking about Henry To'oTo'o transferring to Alabama. Now, this wasn't even Alabama's first big recruit in the past week. Alabama just even got transferred Jamison Williams from Ohio State. And if you look at Ohio State's wide receiver room, I understand why he transferred. Like, you're looking at Chris Olave, you're looking at Garrett Wilson, you're looking at Jackson Smith and Jigba, and you're looking at Julian Fleming as your top 4 wide receivers over there in Ohio State. As much as Bama fans might hate to hear this, I think that Ohio State team has the best wide receiver room in college football right now. Now, that could change with Alabama this year because I still got tons of really, really good guys over there in Alabama. You just add Jamison Williams. I love John Mechie. Of course, he's from Canada, where I'm from. Ajayi Hall, a guy that showed out in the spring game. Lots of good talent to be shown there in Alabama, which at the end of the season, who has the best wide receiver core can be completely different than what they have now. But Tennessee was a program that kind of imploded towards the end of the season. Obviously, you see Jeremy Pruitt move on from Tennessee because he did not perform to par over there in Tennessee. They bring in Josh Heupel, and there were so many different guys from Tennessee that went on and transferred. Another notable guy would be Eric Gray, who's now at Oklahoma, which is going to play. He is going to make such an impact on that Oklahoma team. Watch the spring game and just watch what Eric Gray and that whole Oklahoma team is going to do this year. It's some really, really exciting stuff. I wish that we had teams like Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC so I could like talk about them more, but I don't want to go off on a rant and talk about Oklahoma. This is the SEC show. This is the North to South show. We talk Alabama. We're talking Tennessee here. Henry To'oTo'o was one of the better linebackers in the SEC last season. He was one of the better linebackers maybe in the country, if you want to argue. He was a really just solid player for them. 47 solo tackles for him, 29 assisted tackles, only 1 sack, but he did have 1 interception, a pick 6, which I can remember very, very vividly because it was against my South Carolina Gamecocks. First game of the season, Colin Hill, I'm pretty sure we're in the second quarter, trying to throw an out route to Shi Smith, and Henry just picks it off and takes it to the end zone. Pick 6. Tennessee goes up like 14 or 21 something. I can't remember the exact score at that point. But Henry's been an amazing player for Tennessee throughout his career, and you're adding him on top of an Alabama linebacker room that I think in general, even before this. Now, the Alabama linebacker position over the last couple of years, it's been good. Alabama's always going to have good players on their team no matter what. But it definitely wasn't the strength. It definitely wasn't the position that you look at and you'd be like, this is linebacker U. Alabama is linebacker U. You look at wide receiver position, you look at the running back, you look at the quarterback position the last couple of years for Alabama. But Alabama now at the linebacker position. You look at some of the outside linebackers, Christopher Allen, Will Anderson, Drew Sanders. You look at some of the interior linebackers. You got Christian Harris, who's one of the best players in all of college football, in my opinion. I think definitely a first rounder next year. And you got Jalen Moody. And then add on top of him, Henry To'oTo'o. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right because it's honestly a hard name to pronounce. But I'm pretty sure I've got it down. I've heard it enough times. Alabama's defense is changing for the better, and I think that they are going to be a better team defensively than they were last year. I was very skeptical of this. If you asked me this a couple months ago, I would argue against it, but I think the secondary is still really good. Of course, you lose Christian Barmore on the defensive line. You lose Patrick Surtain in the secondary. You still got a really, really good, talented group of defensive players here. And just adding a guy like Henry To'oTo'o on top of that is absolutely key in just Alabama's success because Henry's not going to make the difference in a game against, let's say, Arkansas or a game against Ole Miss, even though Ole Miss gave Alabama a run for their money a couple last year, whatever it was, week 3. Not going to matter against teams like Tennessee this year, for example. But it's the playoff games. It's going to be the SEC championship game. It's going to be the Texas A&M game. It's going to be maybe even the LSU game. Depends on how they perform this year. That is going to be where you see just how much of an impact having 2 very talented, maybe even 3, add in Jalen Moody, 3 very talented interior linebackers, which linebacker is the quarterback of the defense. Having 3 talented guys at that position will help you immensely in being able to take over these games and win by a substantial margin. Again, if you want to prove that you're the best team in the country when you got some good teams this year, beating Texas A&M by a good margin will help beating teams like, again, LSU, getting to the SEC championship, running Georgia out of town or whatever you want to call it. But this Alabama transfer portal is what I got off on a tangent a bit about what I was talking about and how Alabama's going to do this season. But Alabama, honestly, the next couple of years could absolutely dominate the transfer portal in terms of these players that are coming from these, at the time, schools that aren't performing at the greatest level, but they're still a top player. Why would you stay at that lower level schools if you are good enough to play for the Alabama Crimson Tide, if you're good enough to play in a place that gets so much NFL draft attention? Like, you look at how many guys Alabama is constantly able to send in the first round of the draft this year. Mac Jones, Patrick Surtain, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Alex Leatherwood, and then I'm missing Najee Harris. There we go. All 6 right there. And then even after that, you go Landon Dickerson. You go, who am I missing? There's another guy that I'm definitely missing from Alabama that played a huge role last year. Just can't get him off the tip of my tongue. But those guys right there all went to the NFL in the first 2 rounds. That's 7 players I just named. I think Henry To'oTo'o is definitely a first-round talent. Would he go off the board in the first round if he was still at Tennessee? Let's say he declares for the draft this season, if he is draft eligible. Would he have been drafted in the first round? I don't think so. I don't think he got the media attention at Tennessee. I don't think the defense performed as a whole as well to get the attention that Henry To'oTo'o is an impact player and everything like that. There's so many different factors that can make you look like a so much better player than what people think you are on a lesser team. If he goes to a very good Alabama defense, and one part I really love about defenses and defensive players giving each other opportunities when you play on a really good defense, giving each other opportunities to get those big impact plays. If you got Christian Harris beside you in the interior linebacker position, he's going to draw enough attention on himself. Like, honestly, he's going to draw so much attention. You look at Christopher Allen, too. Like, guys like that are going to draw so much attention on their own. You can't double team every team guy. You can't have a guy focused on each and every Alabama player at all times because one-on-ones, Alabama, these guys are too talented to not win one-on-ones sometimes. If you just put a linebacker on a running back when the linebacker's sacking, interior linebacker, they're going to get home and they're going to get to the quarterback, I'm sure of it. So you need some help. It's not like you can take these guys one-on-one and then constantly keep winning against these Alabama linebackers. When you got 2 guys like that, there's going to be always an opportunity, whether they're double teaming To'oTo'o, whether they're paying more attention to him, whether they're paying more attention to Christian Harris, whether they're paying more attention to Jalen Moody, whether they're paying more attention to Will Anderson or Christopher Allen or whoever it is on that defense, because I haven't even touched on the secondary yet, you are going to give opportunities to other guys on the defense. So as an Alabama fan, I'm not an Alabama fan, but yeah, I'm saying if I was an Alabama fan and I had Henry To'oTo'o come to my team, I'd be more than thrilled. Alabama is just building more strength onto the team, just putting more meat on the bone. He's going to do some amazing things at Alabama next year, and I really think you're going to see Henry To'oTo'o start to get the respect he deserves in terms of getting talked as a first-round pick. Is Alabama dominating the transfer portal? Is that going to become an issue in the next coming years in college football? I think it's definitely an argument that will be made, and I think it's something that we'll definitely talk about. Maybe even Wednesday show, we might save that for that. But main factor, Henry To'oTo'o, great player, going to Alabama, who already has a great defense. Come together, have an amazing defense, go out, do some amazing things in the SEC this year, win an SEC championship, win a national championship. Henry To'oTo'o goes first round of the draft is the basic summary of everything I just said.